America mourns tonight. A horrific plane crash near Reagan National Airport has left the nation reeling. 67 souls were lost. This includes passengers and crew on an American Airlines regional jet. 3 soldiers on a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter were also killed. This is the deadliest aviation disaster on American soil in over 2 decades. The crash has left a nation in shock, searching for answers. This tragedy hits close to home for many. It happened in the heart of our nation's capital. The crash site is just a few miles from the White House and the Pentagon. The incident has raised concerns about air safety. It has also ignited debates about infrastructure spending and disaster preparedness. The crash is a stark reminder of the fragility of life. It is a painful echo of past tragedies that have tested our nation. But amidst the grief and uncertainty, there is also a glimmer of hope. We see it in the heroic efforts of the first responders. We see it in the outpouring of support from communities across the country. The road ahead will be long and difficult, but the American spirit is resilient. We will come together to support the families of the victims. We will honor their memories by seeking answers and working to prevent future tragedies. The crash occurred on the night of Wednesday, January 29, 2025. The American Airlines regional jet was on a routine flight. It was headed to Charlotte, North Carolina. The U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter was on a training mission. It was flying at a low altitude along the Potomac River. The 2 aircraft collided in mid-air. The impact occurred just south of Reagan National Airport. The wreckage of both aircraft plunged into the icy waters of the Potomac River. Witnesses described a scene of chaos and disbelief. The sound of the impact shook nearby buildings. A large plume of smoke billowed into the night sky. Emergency responders rushed to the scene. They faced a challenging and heartbreaking task. The wreckage was submerged in murky water. Visibility was near zero. The current was strong. Yet they worked tirelessly throughout the night, searching for survivors. The crash sent shockwaves across the nation. Air traffic was grounded at Reagan National Airport. Flights were delayed or canceled at airports across the country. News of the crash spread quickly. People everywhere anxiously awaited updates. The investigation into the cause of the crash is ongoing. The National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, is leading the investigation. A team of experts is working to determine what went wrong. They are examining the wreckage of both aircraft. They are also reviewing air traffic control recordings and weather data. The black boxes from both aircraft have been recovered. These devices record flight data and cockpit audio. They are expected to provide crucial clues about the moments leading up to the crash. Investigators are considering several possible factors. These include human error, mechanical failure, and weather conditions. One focus of the investigation is the low-altitude helicopter corridor near Reagan National Airport. This corridor allows military helicopters to fly at low altitudes along the Potomac River. Some experts have raised concerns about the safety of this corridor. They argue that it puts helicopters in close proximity to commercial air traffic. The NTSB investigation is expected to take several months. The goal is to determine the cause of the crash and prevent similar tragedies from happening in the future. The rescue and recovery efforts were nothing short of heroic. Hundreds of first responders worked tirelessly in treacherous conditions. They braved the icy waters of the Potomac River. They battled near zero visibility and a strong current. They knew the odds of finding survivors were slim, but they refused to give up hope. The recovery efforts were hampered by the challenging conditions. The wreckage of the aircraft was scattered over a wide area. The water was murky, making it difficult to see. Divers had to navigate through debris and strong currents. The cold temperatures also posed a risk to the rescue teams. Despite the challenges, first responders remained committed to their mission. They worked around the clock, using sonar equipment, underwater cameras, and divers to locate victims. The bodies were transported to a temporary morgue set up near the crash site. The recovery efforts were a somber reminder of the human cost of this tragedy. Each recovered body represented a life lost, a family shattered. The crash has also sparked political fallout. Former President Donald Trump was quick to weigh in. He offered prayers for the victims and their families. But he also used the tragedy as an opportunity to criticize his political opponents. He blamed the Biden administration for the crash. He claimed that the administration's focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, had weakened safety standards. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg pushed back against Trump's claims. He called them despicable and beneath the dignity of the office he once held. Buttigieg assured the public that the NTSB investigation would be thorough and independent. He vowed to hold anyone responsible for the crash accountable. The crash has also reignited debates about infrastructure spending and aviation safety. Some lawmakers are calling for increased funding for the FAA. They argue that the agency is understaffed and underfunded. They say this crash is a wake-up call. It highlights the need for greater investment in our nation's aviation infrastructure. The political debate surrounding the crash is a reminder of the deep divisions that exist in our country. Even in the face of tragedy, some are more interested in scoring political points than in coming together to support the victims and their families. Section 6. Misinformation and Tragedy. In the wake of the crash, misinformation spread rapidly online. Social media platforms were flooded with rumors and conspiracy theories. One particularly harmful rumor falsely identified a transgender pilot, Joe Ellis, as one of the Black Hawk pilots. This led to a wave of online harassment and abuse directed at Ellis. Ellis, who was not involved in the crash, was forced to issue a statement denying the rumors. She condemned the spread of misinformation and called for unity and compassion. This incident highlights the dangers of misinformation, especially in the aftermath of a tragedy. It also underscores the importance of relying on credible sources of information and avoiding the spread of harmful rumors. The spread of misinformation in this case is particularly egregious given its connection to anti-transgender sentiment. It is a stark reminder of the ways in which tragedy can be exploited to promote hatred and division. Section 7. Remembering the victims. As the investigation continues, it is important to remember the 67 lives lost in the crash. They were mothers and fathers, sons and daughters, friends and colleagues. They had dreams, aspirations, and loved ones who are now left to grieve their loss. Among the victims were Staff Sergeant Ryan O'Hara and Chief Warrant Officer 2 Andrew Eves, two of the 3 soldiers on board the Black Hawk helicopter. They were both highly decorated soldiers who had served their country with distinction. Also among the victims were Justina and Brielle Beyer, a mother and daughter who were traveling together. Chris Collins, a beloved teacher, was on his way home from a conference. Melissa Nicandri, a rising star in the tech industry, was on a business trip. These are just a few of the stories of the lives cut short by this tragedy. Their loss is a reminder of the preciousness of life and the importance of cherishing every moment. Section 8. Lessons learned. The investigation into the crash is ongoing. It is too early to say what lessons, if any, will be learned. However, the tragedy has already sparked a national conversation about aviation safety, infrastructure spending, and the spread of misinformation. Some experts argue that the crash highlights the need for increased investment in the nation's air traffic control system. They point to the fact that the air traffic controller handling the airspace where the crash occurred was also responsible for monitoring a low-altitude helicopter corridor. They argue that this created an unmanageable workload, increasing the risk of human error. Others argue that the crash highlights the need for greater regulation of low-altitude flights, particularly in densely populated areas. They contend that the risks posed by such flights outweigh their benefits. The crash is a stark reminder of the importance of aviation safety. It is a call to action for policymakers, regulators, and industry leaders to work together to prevent similar tragedies from happening in the future. Section 9. A long road ahead. The road ahead will be long and difficult for the families of the victims. They are left to cope with the unimaginable grief of losing their loved ones. They will face many challenges in the days, weeks, and months to come. The outpouring of support from communities across the country has been overwhelming. People from all walks of life have come together to offer their condolences, prayers, and support. They have donated to funds established to help the families of the victims. They have volunteered their time and resources to provide comfort and assistance. The crash is a tragedy that has touched the lives of millions. It is a reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of human connection. In the midst of our grief, let us find strength in one another. Let us offer our support to those who are hurting. Let us honor the memories of those we have lost by working to create a safer and more compassionate world.